Outside the Box Reviews, we're taking a look at the NECA Terminator Genisys T-800 Pops figure. The figure that has confused the hell out of me because every time I see its name, I think for a second that it's a pop vinyl and then wonder why I'm still collecting pop vinyls. But no, this is the figure that is the follow-up to the first two initial offerings in the Terminator Genisys line. As far as I know, this is the very end of the line, so it's not really a wave 2 because it's one figure. It's kind of a wave 1.5 or just a trailing figure to the set. But I am glad that NECA decided to go back and do this version of the T-800 or Pops or the Guardian or however you want to identify him. The previous version we got was the 80s version, and this is the 2017 version showing Arnold in all of his old man oldness. So let's take a closer look and see if this figure is old or obsolete. For an accessory, Pops comes with this rifle that's really cool looking. I think there's a lot of great detail in here. The entire paint job on it looks really nice. It's kind of a nice mottled, speckled, metallic look to everything. Mostly this gunmetal gray, but other sections like the barrel here are a little shinier, which is nice. We even have the little mechanism here on the side that I think you use to load the bullets in, which is cool. We have the scope up here at the top. Lots of nice detail going throughout the gun. And then one of my favorite things here is that the strap for the gun actually has a kind of a beginning and end point. We can see it wrapped around the barrel here, and then we can see it looped through something there on the back. I think that's really cool because a lot of times these straps kind of seem to come out of nowhere and just vanish into nothingness, and they actually made this one look very realistic. And there's some nice silver pieces here as well, which really help the look of everything. However, as you may have noticed at the beginning of this video, this gun does have a fatal flaw. The way it rests in Arnold's hand is very awkward, to say the least. Because of the shape of the back of the handle there, it pushes the nose of the gun forward when Arnold's holding it. And really, I think this is actually more of a problem with the way his hand is sculpted rather than the actual gun itself. But as we can see here, to get his hand on the gun and his finger by the trigger, it just makes him look like he's holding it at an incredibly awkward angle. And if the wrist kind of bent back a little further and let him look like he was holding it more out straight with his arm, that would definitely help. But unfortunately, these hands are not really super designed to have that bit of articulation to them, and no matter how hard I've tried, it also kind of looks a little weird. I think NECA did a much better job with the sculpt here than they did on the previous Guardian figure. I feel like this looks a lot more like old Arnold. We have some great crow's feet detail and the kind of jowls around his mouth. His hair is a little lacking in the gray department. It really kind of looks like he has black hair and then it got sprayed over with white, which is really what the paint application is. But I believe they really used Arnold's natural hair color in the film, so this looks a little unnatural here. But overall, I think it looks really good. Here it is next to the Guardian figure, and you can see it kind of looks like they hardened up the face a little bit. They really kind of gave him a more weathered look. And I think it's a lot better than the smoother face they put on the Guardian. And the irony here is if you look at the Guardian, he has a much more wrinkled neck than the Pops version, which I just think is kind of strange. Pops does come with an alternate head sculpt, and this is the battle damage version. We could see it ripped away, revealing the endoskeleton underneath. And I gotta say, I think NECA's done a much better job creating this endoskeleton effect than they actually did in the movie. In the film, I felt like it really looked like appliances were just glued on Arnold's face. And here it does have a nice sunken quality. It looks like it's under his skin, and I think it works pretty darn well. We also have some additional cuts there on his chin, some with metal showing through, some with just blood. Some nice scratches on the side of his face. There's some silver in his eyebrow, and I don't think that's actually supposed to be there. I think that's actually paint error, but I'm just gonna assume that it's part of the T-800 endoskeleton brow sticking out through his eye. But overall, I think this extra head is pretty cool looking. Taking a look at the rest of the body, he has a very futuristic looking leather jacket here. We have some big pockets on the front, a lot of sculpted wrinkles in it. This is all a soft rubberized piece over his torso here, but looks very nice. A lot of cool little details on it. Zipper sculpted in there, the buttons are sculpted in. It's mostly black, but they did kind of do a little bit of gray dry brushing over top to really bring out some details, which I definitely appreciate. Kind of this quilted pattern going up on his shoulders. And then we just continue down the back with some more wrinkles going around to the belt area here at the bottom. The sleeves are hard sculpted, but they continue the same paint job of having the black with the gray dry brushing over top. Some good wrinkles there. Some more of that quilted pattern here on the arm. The kind of buckle around his wrist. And then we already spoke about the hand a little little bit, but we do have the trigger finger here on his right and the gripping hand here on his left, which is pretty much standard fare for every Terminator figure we've gotten for the most part from NECA. Underneath the jacket, we do have his gray shirt. Here in the center, you can see there is a bit of battle damage. You can see some endoskeletons, some chewed up meat, and there is actually kind of a nice black wash over top of the area here, almost looking like he got blasted or burnt or something. And I hadn't noticed until this review, but if you peel it back a little further, he does have some battle damage here up by his collar, which is completely hidden by the jacket, but I'm really happy that they actually include that detail. That's really nice. Now, the left arm on this figure is removable. I will warn you up front that it is a struggle to get it off, even after I've pulled it off a couple times now, but just be gentle, maybe apply some heat if it's really stuck, but it will eventually unpeg from the arm. You can see what the joint looks like. It's just kind of a straight pin that would peg right in there. And then we can replace it with this little pegged cut off arm. And I believe I have this aligned correctly because if you look at the pattern of the quilting up here at the top, you can kind of see it matches onto the arm a little bit. Also, the pieces of fabric seem to be hanging down this direction. So I think I have this on the correct way, but it's a severed arm. There's really not a whole lot of detail here. Some blood in there, some silver endoskeleton, and overall it works decently well to give that effect. It's a unique piece for sure. Now, one thing I was concerned about with this figure when I put this arm in was getting it back out again, but actually the little bit of fabric here at the bottom kind of lets you get a handle on it and you can pull it right back out. I've used mine a couple times so it slides out a little easier than it did originally, but as with any action figure, just be gentle with it. Don't force the joint when it doesn't want to go, and eventually it'll pop right out and you'll get the desired effect. Going further down the body, we basically have the exact same pants we had on the Guardian version. They are a little dirtier from what I can tell, a nice black wash over top of everything, but they are a gray pair of pants with kind of a blackish brown dry brushing over top to bring out the details. You can see on the back here is a little more detail there as well. This lower torso section is what I also refer to as the diaper, so it's soft and rubberized. The cargo pockets sculpted on here are looking very nice. Some good wrinkles throughout and stitching. More pockets down there on the lower leg. And then we have his Terminator boots, a nice shiny glossy black, some silver eyelets on it, and then the brown sole to them, which I really appreciate that detail. And we do have some treads at the bottom of the feet, as well as copyright information and peg holes. For articulation, I feel Pops is a little limited. We do get a ball joint there at the neck, so you can look a decent amount up, down, turn side to side as well as tilt. Both heads have the exact same articulation. The arm, he has a pin socket joint. You can go forward, back, as well as out to the side. Out to the side's pretty stiff. We do have a hinge, once again, pretty stiff there at the elbow. Only bends about 45 degrees, and it will also rotate. A ball joint at the wrist, so we can rotate the wrist as well as move it a little bit up, down, side to side, but not enough to get the hand in the pose I really feel like it needs to be to hold the gun. And you see the hand pops off if you try to go too far. With the torn off arm, there is actually a ball joint inside of it, so you can actually move it up and down and kind of pivot it all around. You can also rotate it. Just kind of a nice touch. I didn't really expect any articulation there, and we actually did get some. We have ball jointed waist, so you can go a little bit forward and back, side to side, as well as tilt. Pin socket legs, they'll go forward, back, out to the side, as well as rotate at the hip. Single jointed knee bends a decent amount, will also rotate. And then we do have a ball joint at the foot, but because of the way these cargo pants are sculpted, it's really hard to get them in a dynamic pose because it's just very limited in the amount of articulation you get here. You can go a little bit side to side pretty easily. Forward and back and pivot is pretty limited, and I had a really hard time trying to get this guy into any kind of dynamic pose for the beginning of this video. And for a size comparison, here's the two Genisys T-800s next to each other. There should be no surprise. They're the exact same height. Everything from the waist down is the same. I think even that t-shirt underneath is probably the same with some minor differences there on the Pops version for the battle damage. The jacket's different, the arms are different. I think the hands are even the same, and then the head sculpts are definitely different. So a lot of reused parts here, but of course that does work for the character we got. And overall, I think the Pops figure is okay. It's not phenomenal, it's not bad. And as somebody who considers himself a Terminator fan, though as movies go on, I feel like I'm more of a fan of the original two and not really any of the others. I am glad we got the new versions of the T-800 to put on the shelf. I feel like once Arnold stops appearing in Terminator movies altogether, or they reboot it with a new actor in place of Arnold, I'll be less inclined to want action figures portraying the character. But since it is still him in the role, I am happy to have him represented up on my Terminator shelf. And at least, unlike the first two movies, I know we're really just getting these two versions, and then we're done. So, For what it is, for the movie it's based on, for the overall design, I'm going to give it a weak recommend. There are definitely some flaws, I think, with the articulation, but there's other areas where I feel like the articulation's pretty strong. And reviews like this are always the hardest, where I have no strong feelings one way or another. It also doesn't help that I got this on the same day as that phenomenal Sarah Connor figure, and he just really got overshadowed by that. Make sure you follow me on Instagram, username Outside the Box Reviews. Also check me out on Facebook, link below. And until next time, this has been another Outside the Box Reviews, and I'll be back.